In this short video, we're going to introduce the nominal ledger in Sage. Now, the nominal ledger can be found by going to the left-hand side of our page and go down the list until you hit nominal codes, and then just click on that. That takes us into the nominal ledger module of Sage. Now, the nominal ledger records all financial transactions in terms of their effect on 5 broad categories: assets, liabilities, capital, income, and expenses. So assets would include things such as the property, plant and equipment and vehicles, as well as inventories or stocks, and amounts owing to the business. Liabilities record obligations of the business, so amounts that the business owes, whether it's to suppliers, to lenders such as banks or hire purchase companies. The capital accounts relate to the amounts that the owners of the business have tied up in the business. So here we're talking for a company about ordinary shares, as well as profit and loss accounts and other reserves. Income would include income from sales, from rental income, bank interest received, and then lastly we've got expenses, which would include the costs of the goods that the business sells, as well as the running costs such as motor expenses, accountancy fees, rent rates and insurance, and so on. So when we go into the nominal ledger, we can see a long list of different codes, and indeed we've got up to 10,000 different codes that we can set transactions against. Now, unless you know and are familiar with the different nominal codes, these are the numbers that are shown on the left hand side, it can be quite difficult to find the code that you're wanting to record a transaction against. There are a number of different ways that Sage has been set up to try and help us with this though. So for instance, if I click on the name button at the top of the list, that will then put all of these codes into alphabetical order. I can then go back to displaying the codes in terms of the nominal codes. Alternatively, I can view the codes in what's called the analyzer format. I do this by going across to the top right hand corner of the page. At the moment, the nominal codes are shown in a list, but if I click on Analyzer, it then shows the different codes bunched into different groups. So we have sales, purchases, direct expenses, overheads, taxation, fixed assets, current liabilities, long-term liabilities, and capital and reserves. And in order to see the individual nominal codes, I can click on these plus signs on the left hand side, and then we can see the codes arranged in subcategories, which again I can click on, drill down and find an appropriate code. To go back to my original list, I'll simply click on the list button. Now, if it was the case that I've gone through the codes and I can't find a code that I want to use that's not appropriate for a particular expense or income or asset and liability, then what I could do is I can create a new code. Let's, for example, say that we need a code to record a fine received from Companies House. This is quite an unusual transaction, so it's fair to assume that Sage doesn't have a code set up specifically for that type of cost. Well, if that's the case, what I'll do is I'll click on the wizard icon, and then I can start creating a new nominal account. So I'll give it the name Company's House Penalty. I'll then say what type of account it is. Well, it's going to be an overheads account, and then I'll put it into a subcategory. So I'll say that it is a general expense, and then Sage will assign to it an empty or unused nominal code, so 8207. I'll simply click on Next. Sage will ask me whether there's an opening balance that needs to be entered on this, but there isn't, so I'll just leave it as no, and then I'll click on Create. And now if I scroll down this list of nominal codes to 8207, we will see that Sage has created that nominal code. And that's a basic introduction to the nominal ledger.